Hi, and welcome to another edition of Newsmakers Journal of the Vaccine Year. I'm Jerry Roberts. It is Thursday, March 25th. We're doing a day early. We are joined by our all-star panel of top local journalists, and we want to welcome Jade Martinez-Pogue, who writes for Newshawk, her colleague there, Josh Molina, and of course, the angry poodle, his own self, Nick Welsh, executive editor of The Independent. Thanks, everybody. So Jade, I want to start right in on COVID and the vaccine. It looks like, we were talking a couple of weeks ago about shortages. It looks like now we have enough, or if not more than enough. What's the situation with availability now?
Right. So we've been getting steadily increased allocations each week. It kind of started to happen after the shift in the federal government. Public Health has just announced yesterday that they'll be holding 3 mass vaccination sites through a new partnership with the Health Center COVID-19 vaccine program. So they'll get vaccines from them to hold these mass vaccination sites, and starting in Lompoc on Sunday. Then it'll be in Santa Maria and Santa Barbara after that. So it's been picking up pretty heavily.
You said in one of your stories, 11% of the population has been back. Does that include kids as well? Is that adults only? What does that figure represent?
It's on just all of Santa Barbara County residents. So those are the ones who have received their first and second doses, whatever age they may be. But yeah.
And that doesn't include vaccinations that have been given at CVS, or it does, or I'm confused on that point.
I get those numbers from the county's website, and for the total doses administered, those they're tracking that with the federal partnership through CVS. I'd assume that the 11% includes those as well.
Yeah, and we're still in the red tier, correct?
Yeah, we could, in a matter of weeks, though, if our numbers keep trending downwards, we could be in the orange tier within a few weeks, it's looking like.
But there's 2 factors that I'm wondering about. One is, can you talk a little bit about the variants, how much the variants have been of COVID-19 have been seen here, and also concerns about spring break coming up?
Yeah, so UCSB and Cottage Health have been doing local variant testing research. I think as of right now, they've only found 2 strains of the West Coast variant, which is prevalent in California, which isn't as big of a concern as the ones from Brazil or from the UK right now, but they are watching those because those seem to be more contagious, and the one from Brazil could potentially reinfect people who have already had the virus, which is a big concern for the public health leaders, because then it's like we're starting all over again. But they haven't found any of those here yet, which is a good thing. Spring break is a big concern, as you know. Businesses just started to open up more in the red tier, and with that timing, it parallels spring break. So if people are out more, and it's just more of a chance for people to spread the virus, especially if the more contagious variants are out there.
And we've seen in other states where it's been decreasing, but then suddenly plateaued, and I guess that's what. When you look at all those charts every day that I struggle to understand myself, I appreciate you interpreting those. All right, well, thanks on that. On the economic side, Josh, there was a new report you had today about unemployment and lost employment in various industries. What did it say?
Yeah, so at one point, Santa Barbara County had lost 20,000 jobs because of the pandemic. According to the latest available material, which is the end of January, we're down about 17,000 jobs, a little bit less than 17,000 jobs than what we had a year ago prior. And obviously that's because of the pandemic. And we're talking about huge impacts primarily to the leisure hospitality industry, the restaurant industry. These are the industries that serve the public that have been impacted the most because of the pandemic. And as we know, they've been sort of on this roller coaster ride. Initially, everything was shut down. It started to come back. People thought, oh, we're kind of out of it. And then it shut down again in December. And then recently, obviously, things have gotten a lot better. But we're talking about the hotel industry. We're talking about the leisure industry, the accommodation industry, as they call it, as well as restaurants, because those are the kind of workers that obviously, if you don't have customers to serve, or you don't have hotels to clean, or people to serve at a hotel, those are the people who are laid off right away. So that's sort of the big impact. Now, my story came from a few sources. One was Radius Group. They had a talk, and they sort of talked about the national trends, and they talked about California trends, and of course Santa Barbara is pretty much mirroring the national trends. It's about as bad here as it is anywhere. And they talked about having some optimism though with the vaccine, and the idea that hopefully the worst is over. Of course, nobody knows about these variants and what that could bring. Also, I talked to Peter Rupert from UCSB, the economist, and he sort of laid out the numbers and sort of looked at how we're seeing basically it took 8 years, okay, he said, for us to get to the unemployment levels that we were before the most recent recession, okay? And then we have the pandemic, and it just tanks everything. And that's less than a year that it does that. So his little bit of optimism is maybe, just maybe, our recovery will be a little bit faster because of the anomaly of what this all experience. Of course, the wild card though is your close friend, Jerry, Governor Gavin Newsom, and what sort of government restraints and orders and lockdowns that we're going to see. He's obviously playing a lot of defense right now because of this recall, which obviously he might be taking a back seat here to all of these orders. But if the state has to once again start implementing shutdowns, that's going to wreck the economy as well.
Yeah, well, that's why the variant thing is such a big deal. I think what Gavin wants to do now is get kids back to school. I think that's the big sort of middle class voting population thing that he's worried about as a political matter.
Yeah.
So
Josh, I'm just curious, the numbers that you had there, those do not include farm workers, right?
I was going to ask that. Yeah, that's a good question.
I don't know. I think they did. I didn't ask specifically if they did or not. It was the numbers were from the county, unless they have a different pool for how they show that data. So I don't know.
But I got the sense that there was more unemployment up in the northern part of the county than there was down here.
Yeah. So North County's got about 10.8 unemployment rate, and South County's got about a 6% unemployment rate right now. So when you average those two together, but it's much worse in North County.
Yeah, but don't worry about a thing, Nick, because if there's any farm worker problem, they'll all be hired by the cannabis industry and your friends in that. But hey, speaking of twisting things to COVID, you managed to get bicycles into just about everything that you write. But now we've got this new Sola Street bike lane going on, and you allege and theorize that the pandemic is the best time to be doing this kind of thing. Why?
Okay, well, city traffic engineers have been conspiring for 20 years to figure out how to make people get on their bikes and get out of their cars and ride to work. And if any place needs to be done, the South Coast seems to be the ideal place. If we can't do it, who can? And so they've been doing all these sort of build it and they will come approaches with some success. Not a lot, but some. Then all of a sudden the pandemic comes and everybody has discovered it's not safe to be on a bus. I'm unemployed. If I want to get around, I want to get some exercise because the gyms are closed, I'm going to ride my bike. So if you want to try to get a bike these days, the inventory is just completely diminished. If you want to get your bike repaired, it's like a 2 to 3 month wait. And it's been this way. And so what's really cool you know, is it what you see out on the streets? You see families out in much larger numbers with their kids, sort of just strolling around. And so the fear factor that inhibited a lot of people from being on the road is diminished. And you see bicycle riders taking to the streets with greater confidence in numbers.
Yeah, and I guess they'll be taking to the streets in greater confidence in numbers in the West Side Community Paseos project, whatever that is, that was passed by the council this week.
Well, that name is a real masterpiece in gobbledygook and double talk. I mean, it truly is. You know, they should get a 5-star award for that one. That refers to the Solo Street bike lane, which is basically it's a 16-block bike lane that the city has been, you know, sees as the sort of the centerpiece of its new bicycle master plan. And it runs from the Mitchell-Traina Street Bridge over on the west side, and then it goes down Castillo Block across town through Sola, and then it goes all the way to Santa Barbara High School. And it's the sort of the missing link that will make everything, you know, everybody be able to ride their bike anywhere. Unlike
Yeah, go ahead.
And unfortunately, it ran headfirst into the buzzsaw of the Historic Landmarks Commission. If they ever make a movie about the Historic Landmarks Commission, it will be called No Country for Old Grumpy White Men.
Actually, that's what we're changing the title of the show to, but go ahead.
And they, you know, not to be, you know, dismissive, they are the keepers of the flame. They are the high priests of the Santa Barbara look. And they feel very much under siege in general right now, that their mission is not taken as seriously as it has been. And they feel particularly that the city transportation department is run amok with bicycle advocates, smart growth advocates, and people who have no respect.
And painting the street green and blocking the mountain views.
And
Josh,
I will say that
Go ahead,
I
yeah,
watched the green paint is a huge issue.
yeah,
Because I was watching one of the Historic Landmarks Commission meetings on this subject, and one of the commissioners said, oh, this is stupid. This is stupid. This is like putting lipstick on a pig, but neon green lipstick. And you could see that if they got rid of the neon green, I think about 60% of the problem would go away.
no, well, except as a political matter, Josh, this is what, the third time that Rob Dayton, the transportation director, has run over the Historic Landmarks Commission in about a week or a month or something like that.
Yeah, I got to ask you, Nick, do you dream in cliches and metaphors too, or is it just spontaneous when you're writing and you're on camera?
Oh,
Well,
come on.
What are you referring
Come
to?
on, come on, come on.
No, yeah. So another perspective to what Nick just summarized is that the pandemic happened, and all of a sudden, State Street became sort of everything for everybody who's ever wanted anything downtown. And so obviously the restaurants could not serve their customers inside. So it makes sense that the city would try to accommodate them outdoors and with the parklets. If you've been downtown, Jerry, I know you've seen the photos. It's quite the spectacle.
I've seen videos too, okay? Not just photos.
You know, in a town that prides itself on having incredible architecture, this looks totally out of place. The HLC feels as though they've been sidestepped, because the great irony of this is that for years, developers have been saying that the advisory boards hold up our projects. They cost us lots of money. And then we go back and they tell us to do something that we originally proposed. Their direction is constantly flipping. And they've had that frustration for years. And here's Rob Dayton, who's there saying, we don't have time to go to HLC. Okay.
Yeah.
The irony of that. Now, he did it first with e-bikes, right? Because
he did it before then on the emergency State Street promenade plan.
Yeah, the promenade. We don't have time. Let's just help our restaurants.
Doesn't promenade mean pedestrian? I didn't know it meant two-wheel terrorist out there. Finish
And
it.
here's the third time. So for the HLC's perspective, they're sort of like, how come you like us sometimes, but you don't like us all the time? This is not fair. And obviously there's a certain amount of protection and ego that comes with serving on that board. You're in charge of preserving the historic character
Or the
of the El Pueblo
colonialist
Viejo
aesthetic.
district.
Yes, the colonialist aesthetic, as they called it this week. Some of
So-
my allies in the bike community, I think, were a little. All right, let me switch gears here a little bit. So, Jade, speaking of the city council, we've got city council member Megan Harmon, the most ambitious person this side of Cassius, and the supervisor Das Williams have been set forth, I guess, by the Board of Supervisors as possible appointees for the governor to the Coastal Commission. Where does that process stand? And are there other candidates for that as well?
Yeah, so once the governor receives all the nominations, he has 45 days to make his selection and notify the boards and the city selection committees of his commissioner and his alternate. Sorry, what was the second question you
No,
asked?
I just, there are candidates, are there not, also from Ventura and Slow?
Yes, so I know that from Ventura, Supervisor Linda Parks was nominated. I believe that was the first nomination from the Tri-County area to be sent in, if I'm correct. They also nominated a handful of city council members, one of them being Megan Harmon also, because other counties are allowed to nominate council members from the other counties as well. And San Luis Obispo sent in their nominations. I don't have the names off the top of my head, but there's also people from those areas in the running. But I think it's unlikely to pick someone from San Luis Obispo, seeing that Eric Howell came from Pismo.
The guy
So
who's just departed. So,
yeah.
so Das is making a big deal about that Santa Barbara hasn't had any representation, but in fact, during the period he references, both Pedro Nava and Yana Zimmer were on. They didn't have the elected official seat, but they did have a seat. Nick, I thought it was interesting that Joan Hartman, Supervisor Hartman, also snuck in the name of the mayor of Oxnard, correct? As a possible. Was that a diss on Das or? Ooh, say that.
You know what? I did not follow that. That's actually really interesting.
It is interesting. What did you make of that, Jade? Did you see any political intrigue behind that, or was it just a good faith effort on her part?
Was it from
Guadalupe.
Oxnard? Yeah, I think it was Guadalupe.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood. I'm
Sorry to correct you, Jerry. I
yeah, well,
apologize.
that's fine. That's
I was like,
your
whoa.
first show. Yeah, I might as well get it wrong. Why not? The mayor of Guadalupe. Okay, I apologize. But she did that on her own, or did the whole board approve that, or what was the?
So he, from what I gathered from the meeting, he sent in his letter of interest a little later than Harmon and Williams. And the other board members didn't think that they had enough time and didn't think that he had the proper qualifications to be nominated. But Hartman saw this as an opportunity to get some more diversity onto the commission, someone representing North County. You know, you have the dunes up there, you have all this stuff in North County. So her reasoning, she's like, she thought it could be a good way to just increase diversity on the commission.
No, okay, my apologies on for getting that one wrong. All right, what else was going on this week? So anything new on the Anthony Wagner LA Magazine front, Nick?
Well, what we know is that, you know, Anthony Wagner remains in, administrative leave. He is the former public information officer for the police department. And the city of Santa Barbara has hired a firm out of Ventura that specializes in looking into the underwear drawer of police officers to make sure that they're all clean tidy, and a budget of $7,500 to determine what we already know, which is that the conflict of interest that was alleged in this article factually did not exist.
Which
Right.
you've already proven.
We kind of have proven that. And Bonnie Malekian, the interim police chief, said we're just doing this out of kind of due diligence to make sure that, kind of look down and who are the principals of the different cannabis operations to make sure that there's no untoward coziness and financial self-dealing involved. But so far, it looks like the answer is pretty much going to be that you may not like Anthony, he may not be your flavor of the month, but he's not a crook.
Yeah. Hey, Josh, do you have a sense of the scope of this investigation? Because there were like 4 issues, I guess, raised by the piece. One was, we have high salaries for administrators. That's not going to be in there. The other was this question of conflict between Wagner and the people that got the licenses. But then there's the question of the city ordinance and the flipping of the city ordinance, which you uncovered. And then the other issue that's kind of hanging out there is Wagner's interactions with George Trujillo, this fellow on the east side, and Anthony was disciplined for, swearing at him in a 7-Eleven, but there was another kind of weird thing about his barbershop being raided too. Do you know if the Malekian report is going to look at all of those things?
I don't think so. I think the Malekian report is going to look at one specific thing, which is what was the relationship between him and Micah Anderson. I think that's the one area that is up for question or dispute, was what was the financial relationship between this individual and Anthony, and what was that relationship with Golden State Greens. Now, it appears as though there's zero relationship. I mean, they used to know each other from before, but as far as what Santa Barbara was doing, it appears that there was zero relationship, which is with the main problem with the story, which was implied that there was, and it made Anthony look like he was corrupt, at least a reasonable person.
Well, when they compared him to someone
social
in
media.
Godfather, you could also,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to look at that, say, okay, let's really drill down though. What was your relationship, and what was going on with Golden State Green? So, I would be stunned if that report came back and said Anthony was corrupt or that he had a conflict of interest. I'm not saying Anthony is not, I'm not saying anybody's guilty. I don't know, but I would be stunned if that report actually said that.
well, we do know that Anthony was in business with Micah Anderson before he came to Santa Barbara. And we do know that the year after the Santa Barbara licenses, that Micah Anderson did become partners, I guess, in Golden State Green. So it's just the.
But it's not quite, I don't think that's.
Did I get the second
precisely
part
correct? I
imprecise?
think
First.
they were joining together to pursue a dispensary deal in Pasadena.
So it was
So
a
they were,
one-off?
and what the exact relationship of that one is, I don't know, but it sort of moved because it got rejected in the vetting process, and it came a year after the fact here.
All right.
By the way,
But
can
the other
I
thing
just
just to go is, it's interesting you brought up Bonnie Malekian and George Trujillo, the barber. I don't think that's going to be part of the investigation that this company from Ventura is going to do. But I think Bonnie Malekian has reached out to George Trujillo to have conversations to see what's going on and what happened. And so I think, Barney is taking that one seriously enough to reach out to the principals to get their side of the story. I don't think anything is going to come of it in terms of we're not going to reopen any investigations that already have concluded that Anthony was out of line, cussing out George Trujillo while he was a customer in a 7-Eleven line.
All right. All right. We just got a couple minutes left. A couple of quick things. Jade, you did a piece on the arena numbers, and I'm not even going to try to remember what that stands for, but it's the housing numbers from the state that they want the county to build. And how many of those are being directed to the city of Santa Barbara? Do you remember?
I don't remember. Oh, I have it right here. So about 8,000 are for Santa
8,000.
Barbara. Yeah.
And what period of time is that? Do you remember?
It's for the cycle is for over the next 8 years. So I think the whole process in a year or two is when the cities will have to come up with their actual plan to like where these spaces will be if they do decide to build them.
So 8,000. Is that a realistic number, Josh, for the city to build in that period of time, do you think?
Well, I don't think they have to build. I think they have to figure out a place where they could build it, zone for it, and identify it. I think the real story here is what was in the Independent. It was sort of looking at how, you know, CARP was pushing back on I'm sorry, maybe it was a News Talk too, but I saw in the Independent, but CARP's pushing back saying, you know, we don't really want to do this amount and particularly this style of housing. And so, you know, what you have here are political fight, you know, people saying, oh, well, we've already built our share. You need to build more of this and that. And so that's kind of interesting. You see where people's priorities are in terms of where the housing is coming from. Local governments do not like these state mandates. They want to be able to plan their communities locally. To be able to say you've got to do this is just like another thing. You know, they're already really grumpy over ADUs and having that be ministerial and over the counter. And what does that mean? So, you know, these numbers, they're less. I think they were whittled down, but they're still impactful. And I don't see how they're not going to build 8,000 units in the next eight years, but they have to identify where they could.
Yeah, Nick, based on what we know about the candidates for mayor so far, do you see any big difference in, say, you know, the views of Deborah Schwartz in terms of housing density, and then you know, someone on the other side of the spectrum, whether it's James Joyce or Kathy Murillo or Randy's in there somewhere. Is it possible to differentiate on that issue?
I think that there'll be some differentiation, but it'll be shades of gray. I think Randy will be Randy Rouse, who is a sort of the more moderate, more conservative candidate, is going to be less enamored as the sort of pedals to the metal. We got to build housing. Kathy Murillo, I suspect it's going to be we got to build housing, and I would imagine that Deborah Schwartz, likewise, will be. You know, we have lots of different options that we need to be exploring. We need to look at downtown. James Joyce, to be perfectly honest, I don't know what his thoughts are.
He'll want to bring everyone together, I expect.
Well, you know, you got to say that thing. You got to bring. Who doesn't say they want to? Who wants to run on the platform? I want to push people apart.
Oh, I was kidding.
We had a president, Nick, who was pretty successful,
He was quite successful
for 4 years.
too.
Hey, and then really quick, you had this story about the vacation rentals lawsuit that just got, I guess, completed, and a lot of people argue that, you know, the best argument against vacation rentals, it takes housing off the market. But the city got their clock cleaned on this, did they not?
No, I think you got that backwards. The city actually won that one. The city was being sued by James Frankner, who is sort of a conservative gadfly and critic of social change.
Big fan of the show. Big fan of the show.
He owned a vacation rental, and the city said, "Sorry, dude, you're operating it as a hotel, and you don't have the hotel permit." So he sued, saying, you know, vacation rentals and hotels are completely different. And so the city said, "Oh, you're right. We're going to change our ordinance to after the fact to reflect that they're the same."
Oh, and he
They
lost.
did that.
I see.
And So they went before Judge Tom Anderley, and Anderley said the city's acting completely properly, and et cetera. And James Frankner, who was an acerbic guy, his comment was, I hope City Attorney Ariel Khan enjoys his little plastic trophy. Because there's another lawsuit coming down the pike that's gonna wipe him out, like a tsunami, Josh.
So
I love when the adults, in the room, the critics of government and the media start insulting people by calling them names. That really gives them a lot of credibility.
Oh yeah, well, James Frankner he's sort of the Paul Lynde of local politics.
But didn't the city lose a big multi-million-dollar?
That was another one. That was a big $6 million case. There's a guy named Thomas Felke who owns
Oh, I got Felke mixed up with Frankner. That's what.
and he owns a postage stamp on the bluffs overlooking the mesa, and he wanted to build a 3-story home, and the city said you can't do that. And they lost that one as an inverse condemnation. It's going to cost them about $6 million when all the dust settles.
All right. Well, I've managed to make a glaring factual error on every person's story
Right.
throughout the broadcast. So I know now how LA Magazine feels. So, okay. Jade Martinez-Pogue, Josh Molina, Nick Welsh, thanks so much for taking the time. Stay safe out there. Get your vaccines, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.